I will like to first invite the panel moderator Tapan Acharya, CRO Omni. To join Tapan, I have Abhay Mathur, who is the head for digital with Fossil Group, Amit Ahuja, Senior Vice President, Sales with Natco Cloud, Samdani Basha, Vice President, CX Design Operation Flipkart, Pratik, Senior Vice President, India Business with Servify. I will request all panel members to keep their videos on. I think you already have so. And on that note, all to you, Tapan sir, to start off with the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Sandeep. I will just wait for all the panel members to.
So your voice,
Can you hear my voice?
I can hear
There
it.
is a
Please, sir.
disturbance.
I will also like to invite, that's my bad, Sajot Singh, sir, digital experience with Salesforce, and Sarvatha Kanchan, Vice President, Supply Chain and Customer Service with Snapdeal, also to join the panel discussion. Tapan sir, please, yes, go ahead.
Sure, absolutely. I can't see all the panel members. If they can switch on the video, it will be fantastic.
Yeah.
Great, Amit. I can see you. Nice to see you. So I can see right now, Amit, who's the Senior Vice President for Netcore Cloud. Um, do I need to change the view? I can't see all of them at the same time.
Amit, let me, you can't see all of them, just a second, sir.
I can just see one person. I can just see Amit. See all of them at the same time.
So we can see all. Let me try a different view.
Yeah.
This is something different. Teams
Yeah,
has.
no problem. And, let me just continue in the interest of time. Sandeep, you can see all of them?
Yes, sir, I can see all of them.
Sure, no problem. Maybe it's a view thing, and I'll change my view later on. So first of all, thank you. Most welcome to everyone, my equals, my betters. It is always fantastic to have a discussion with you all. And so I have with me Abhay Mathur. He's the head of digital for Fossil, and I have with me Amit. He's the senior vice president for Netcore Cloud. Samdani ji, I hope you've joined. He had a little bit of a personal exigency, so I hope he messaged me, so I was he be able to conclude that, and he has joined. Then I have with me Pratik. He's joining from the US. He's the senior vice president for the India business for Servify. I have with me Swajot Singh, who's the digital experience head for Salesforce, and of course Sarvatha, who's the VP for supply chain and customer service for at Snapdeal. It's a pleasure to talk to you all, and it's a very loaded topic, which is customer journey mapping, science behind consumer psychology and experience, and there is the entire value chain in the current environment is crisscrossing online and offline, and there is a data aspect of it, and there is a personalization aspect of it. And just before this panel discussion, Dharma has given a fantastic presentation on how they are able to see and target people, and take a look at what they need, as small things as that if you're a luxury buyer, the click should be near your thumb, and at the bottom of the screen if you're using a mobile phone, and the recommendation part of it. So the value chain is online, it is into logistics, it is into so many things. So it's a quite a tough task for me to talk about all of these things. So let me just kickstart the journey from front end and take it forward. So my first question is would be to Swajot. Swajot, how at Salesforce or through you're optimizing the customer experience, and what are the things that you do which gives you the maximum ROI for customer experience? Over to you, Swajot.
I think there is a problem with someone's background. Yeah, now it's good. Yeah, please, sir, go ahead, sir. Now it's better.
Yeah. Am I audible now? If somebody can confirm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right. So, that's an interesting one, Tapan. As you're right, right? Customers today, they have the liberty of, interacting with the brand, not just through one, channel, which could be their web store, but it is also to do with, what they're doing on their offline channel, or they're doing it on their social media handles and things like that. So how do you build this whole profile around? I can hear myself. Okay. So how you build this whole profile? You create a CDP, data lake wherein you have a singular profile of your customers, wherein you're, kind of getting all of their data around their behavioral metrics and, demographic metrics. You use that data to personalize every aspect of their journey, be it the content delivery, be it the search recommendations, be it the product recommendations that happen onto the site or onto the mobile app, etc. So wherever the customer is coming to, if you're running some social media ad campaigns or you're running email campaigns, it should redirect the customer to the right relevant landing pages, etc., so that they feel the journey is continuing in that same continuum, and then they are able to transact accordingly. And then in those moments there are a lot of opportunities to create upsell and cross sell. There is one school of thought that kind of Amazon follows, that if somebody has put something in cart, you don't put recommendations and just clearly get them to check out. And there is another school of thought wherein you want to create some cross sell. So those are certain business calls that every customer needs to make, depending on what is the point of view they carry in their industry. But the idea is that the flexibility to serve the customer is enormous, and that's where we want our customers to lead with that kind of an idea. Taban, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, there's a slight lag and a delay in this. So fantastic input, Prajot. And I know you talked about a lot of topics and very, very important topics, the way it is important from a front end perspective, the way it is important from a targeting perspective, the way it is important from a personalization perspective, and very important, very touch and feel topics. Very related to this topic is also Amit from Netcore Cloud. Amit, how do you tighten this right from the front end perspective for the recommendation aspect of it? What's your take on the customer experience right from the front end part? Over to you, Amit.
Yeah, hi Tapan and hi everyone. So Tapan, the space that we come from, essentially around the entire customer experience and engagement space, we've seen there are some very, very important sort of challenges that some of the large e-commerce customers are battling with. And these essentially, and like Dharmarajan also showed in his presentation, in the different sort of stages of the customer journey. But I think one important point is that we see is around product discovery. So this whole challenge around how do customers really discover products? Customers actually kind of bounce off because they're not able to find the relevant product. Sometimes the issue is that it's a huge catalog, and hence I'm not able to find what's really relevant for me. So I think product discovery is one key challenge that we are seeing today, and also like Sujat also said, right? I think how are you really using personalization and product recommendations, to kind of assist users and kind of make sure that they're able to find what they're looking at. How do you sort of capture eyeball data? How do you look at what kind of preferences customers are trying to display on your website? So customers are leaving their footprints, they're leaving their marks on your website. The idea is how are you having algos that are kind of reading some of this and then churning out very, very personalized recommendations. So do you have like personalized widgets on your e-commerce portal which talks about personalized for you or recommended for you? And we've seen with brands like Zivame, leading lingerie brand in India, we've seen phenomenal results. We've seen their revenues go up by 15 to 18%. So we're seeing like very, very high impact with personalization and recommendations, playing that role to solve the discovery problem. You're on mute, Tapan. Sorry. Yes,
Yes, it is taking a little bit of a time for the mute unmute button to come up on the screen. So
yeah.
while you, so actually a lot many loaded points about the way the person interacts with the UI, the way you are able to recommend the product, the way you are able to capture the data, capture the footprint, and target the relevant customers. It's very, very important. And I've seen that a lot many conversions depend on it. For example, in our current lives, we can give anything to anyone, but we don't want to give time. कोई मुझसे टाइम मत लो. यदि आपके यूआई पे मुझे बहुत टाइम लगता है, if I am spending getting to spend too much time on the UI, then it is not a great experience, of course, and very rightly said. And also the way Swajot added that the way you can recommend a particular product and capture the customer journey from the front end perspective is very, very important. You want to and there are many, many models happening. There is a subscription model happening, and the front end should be able to allow all that. Another part that I can see is, from the second part of experience is the way the front end hands off this data into the order management system, and when this goes into the order management system, how quickly you want to tie that up with the way the order is processed, and that jumps up into the process part of it. And here I want to bring in Prateek. Prateek, you are doing a lot on optimizing the process so that the customer experience is great. What's your take on it, and what are the things that you optimize so that the customer experience is great?
From a customer experience perspective, the process, the most important thing is customer gets what they want with least amount of effort that they need to put, and for system to be smart and intelligent enough to be able to anticipate and present it to the customers. And that's where the algos and all those things kind of come in, right? So it's about building that customer profile and understanding of that customer so that they can be presented something in a very personalized manner. Now, I think there are few elements to this entire journey. One is the order process, in which you obviously try to convert discovery into a cart, and cart into an order, and one is that kind of a process. But I think the customers now really want to be involved and to know about from the order all the way till delivery, and from the delivery all the way after that. And then the customers today want to be involved in the entire process and want to be kept in the loop about the process, right? And their information about what's happening with the order, with the stuff that they've ordered, and what's happening after that, if there are some post-sale elements to that particular order, go a long way in ensuring that the customer experience, customer is managed and the experience is really, really optimized. I think the smarts of the system is about anticipating the customers, building that profile, and be able to serve that profile across a vast majority of customers that you have.
Very right point. And I feel that the way, especially in India, the offline sellers are transforming into the online and offline combination of sellers. There's a huge part of process transformation. In fact, I say that an omni-channel operation is not just a tech transformation. It's very heavily a process transformation. And a couple of points that you touched about, people want to be informed that where they are when the product is getting delivered. It actually opens doors on a lot many other topics. For example, how optimized is your return logistics, how optimized is your reverse logistics, because that one lost product or one fake product or one delayed product can break the entire online relationship forever. And that aspect is very, 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 the impact of that is very, very critical for the complete experience from an online to offline world. And very rightly said, Prateek, very rightly touched on the process topic. And since we're already talking about the process and the supply chain, actually I want to bring in Sarvatha on this. Sarvatha, you are the VP for supply chain for Snapdeal, and you can talk a lot about the process and the supply part of it. So over to you, Sarvatha.
Thanks, Pratik. Thanks, Tapan. So I think when we're looking at the overall customer experience, in my role as the customer experience head as well, I see the majority of touch points that a customer has with the platform is primarily driven because of supply chain experiences, right? I mean, he's talking mostly about where the order is, by when will I get the delivery, and to the point like I need my refund, when is the return going to get picked. There's so many different aspects of those touch points that kind of come into picture. And I mean, I can say, and I've seen multiple platforms, I can say that I've seen and worked in multiple platforms. I can say around 60 to 70% of touch points are mostly about supply chain, right? And the way the overall ecosystem has evolved, and I'm also fortunate to be a part of this ecosystem for close to a decade now. So I can tell you that earlier when the supply chains were more push based, where basically it was the customers who were being pushed the product from the platforms, right? I mean, the platforms are pushing these products to the customers, and supply chains have to kind of, I mean, a 3-day, 4-day, 5-day delivery was okay, right? To a time where it is today, where it's more of pull based, where the customers are now pulling products from online platforms, and it's not in days that we are talking about. We're actually talking about hours of delivery, right? And that shift has actually led to a lot of transformation, both from technology and supply chain processes, in terms of how things are being fulfilled from an order management perspective, how things are being displayed to the customer from a track and trace perspective, and how the entire transaction happens between the last mile and the customer in terms of quicker deliveries and the entire hyperlocal concept. So yeah, a lot is changing from a process
Correct.
perspective.
Correct. And especially the scale of it is completely changing. Like I have personally seen a couple of brands pre-pandemic who were having omni-channel ordering as 3 to 5% of their P&L. They have suddenly moved to 25, 30, and at least in a couple of brands in fashion and lifestyle, they've moved to 40% of their P&L, dependent completely on e-commerce and omni-channel play. That's totally a surprise to me. Like those brands used to get a few hundred orders, uh, per day through e-commerce, and now they're getting thousands of orders. And there are days when the number crosses about a 10,000 plus orders in a day from online and omni-channel itself. And there is a various channels and the scale of it. And I will deep dive more on this. And I was just wondering if Samdani Bashaji could also join now. Samdani ji, are you there?
Tapan, yes, I'm back.
Good to have you, and it's good to hear from you. And at the right moment, when I'm talking large scale, when I'm talking large volumes, and I'm talking customer experience, so who knows it better than you at Flipkart? So, what are the things that you're seeing, and in all across various facets of it, how are you optimizing the customer experience? Over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for that question, Tapan. And I think just put things in perspective, right? As in, we typically define about close to 15 odd nodes, basically pre and post order nodes in the context of our organization and our customers, right? And I think since we've had the luxury of being digital first, right? So I think it's a little cliche to talk about digital transformation in the context of our organization. So maybe I'll just talk a little bit about process and policy transformation, right? And I think as we have evolved over the past couple of years, and I've been in this role for about close to 5 years now. So what we've seen is beyond the realms of technology, I think like you rightly called it process and policy, we've been over-indexing on trying to ensure that we align ourselves on a couple of core principles for customers. And internally for us, we've defined like about 5 principles. And then as an extension of that, we also defined ways of working. Now, interestingly, what happens here is I'll put this under the basket of process policy transformation, because this is a mind shift change within the organization itself. And luckily for us, with the sponsorship of our CEO, I think what we're trying to do is in terms of somehow over-index on a couple of policy constructs that hurts the organization if they don't make it right for the customer. And I'll tell you, one manifestation of this in terms of ways of working, right? So what we said is, take the case of delivery, right? And so we have reasons to believe that about 98, 99% of our orders get delivered on time, but there is that 1.5, 2%, right, which actually breaches. And we're talking at significant scale right now, right? In terms of SLAs we commit to the organizations, to the customers, that is. So here, what you've told us is in terms of, we said, while we expect the rest of the org to do it right the first time, I'm giving you a small tolerance for error of not making it right, which basically means for a very minuscule percentage of your scope, you basically get a second chance. Okay. And if you don't make it right with a second chance, you haven't done anything to, the customer will not give you a third opportunity, which is where the CX team will actually intervene and make it right. Now I'll tell you how this manifests itself, right? Let's say you have a return. You've spoken about return a lot here right now. So once you have a return, there is a reverse pickup, right? And then obviously there is people who are supposed to go and pick it up there. You commit a date to the customer. You don't go by that particular date. So we say, okay, let me give you a small tolerance. I'll give you 25% more than your base SLA as a time limit to go pick it up from the customer. And mind you, if you don't pick it up, I don't care whether you pick it up or not, I'm going to be refunding the money to the customer. So the chances are I would have paid the money to the customer. I wouldn't even have picked up the product. Too bad, not my problem. It's your problem, not the customer's problem. Okay, so that is one manifestation, right? And then in the context of, let's say, if you look at your post for electronics largely, right? So we have this huge construct called, we send a few customers for a couple of brands to the authorized service center. Okay, and then what happens is, okay, you are obligated to sell a good product to the customer. But let's say whatever defect rates are and so on and so forth, right? Now, for a few customers, let's say I'll pick the name of, let's say, HP, and I have to send the customer to the service center right now. But what we've mandated there is in terms of if the order to delivery cycle time, let's say, was 3 days, okay, the SLA for a repair of a defective product cannot be more than 3 days, which basically means post-delivery journey should be less than or equal to the order to delivery journey, because that puts a huge amount of focus on the brand to ensure they do a damn good job of mean time between failures, stocking availability across various, and if they don't do it by the third day, lo behold, I'm going to be refunding the money to the customer. And a laptop unit's about 40,000 bucks.
Yeah, and actually the both the examples that you took, both the comparisons are relative comparisons. You are relating it with something which is your process, and then measuring it from there. And I can totally, when you were talking about the first example, the refund is being made, it gives me goosebumps, because I know if the product is still with the customer and at mass scale, you've done the refund, what a havoc it causes with the brand, because the entire category management and your seller management becomes so challenging then. But very very important thing for to tighten the internal nuts and bolts to ensure that the customer experience doesn't suffer, and what you've really talked about is at scale. So a very very good examples. I also want to bring at this point someone who's doing it, and from a different perspective, from a brand perspective. Abhay, you there? Abhay, can you hear us?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hi, Abhay. I want to talk about your experience. What are you doing from a customer experience standpoint, both online and offline, as of head of digital for the Fossil Group?
See, I would say it's like a very typical, chicken or egg kind of a story for every brand, right? What you want to kind of fix first, right? So there is a pre-order and there is a post-order, right? What I do is I
Abhay,
always
your voice
focus.
is very, very low, and there's some background noise also.
Is it better now? Any
Hi,
chance? Is it better now?
your voice is better. Noise is still there, but voice is louder.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, there's an AC on and there's no fan, so I guess it's my AC is working fine. I didn't purchase from Flipkart, so I might not go to the brand directly.
No.
So
That's a good one.
I think this is
okay,
fairly
so
better now.
I hope you're able to hear me. Bear with me if there is still some noise, so maybe I have to go to Dell now. But yeah, that's how it is. So as I said, it's like, what do you want to fix first? You want to fix the pre-order scenario or the post-order scenario? I personally always look at the post-order scenario, right? Because you have done all the hard work in bringing the customer on your website. You've invested your monies in getting the customer on your website, and he has whatever it takes to actually buy that particular order. He has searched for it, he has looked for it, he has shown interest into it, and he has purchased that order. So it all starts with the post-order experience. So I would say my 70% of my time goes into analyzing that, how are we doing with the post-order scenario. It is very important as we have spoken about, how much time it takes from order creation or order has come to my order management system to pick it, to pack it, to QC it, to hand it over to the last mile, and eventually deliver it to the customer. How much time it has taken, and there is always a chance, or as Samnani suggested, a second chance in delivering on time or third time, so I always look at what are we doing with respect to post order. I always look, was it delivered with a wow kind of an experience that we delivered before the committed delivery time. Remember there were days when there was no option on the website, be it Amazon or anyone, where you can check the serviceability of a pin code, right? It all started with that. That is personalization to start with. Then we started with expected date of delivery. That is second level of personalization to start with. Basis the pin code you give, suggest them. Then there are now time slots with things like electron, big home appliances and all that. So we are definitely getting deeper with respect to personalization at the pre-order scenarios and post-order scenarios as well. With respect to us, what we do is, you know, uh, we try to educate the customer on the front end. We have a very typical problem when it comes to watch as a category. They are expensive watches, and there can be categories like automatic watches or mechanical watches, which is a tad different from how it operates, like in comparison to a traditional watch. But they look pretty good. They look sleek. They look skeleton looking like watches. So the consumer, for I won't say fall, but just like lack of a better word, I would say they really like that product in terms of aesthetic, and they buy it without knowing how it actually works. Automatic works on your hand movement and all that. So for us, it becomes very, very important to educate the customer, and I'm using the word educate. Educate the customer that how actually this product works. Unlike the very typical examples of phones or desktops and all that, or laptops, you compare it simply by 8 GB RAMs or 16 GB RAMs, and you try to kind of subconsciously believe that an 8 GB RAM laptop will work better than a 6 GB RAM, but might not be the case eventually, right? But in this case, if a watch it stops working, then you need to be very, very sure that the customer do not return it. And we have seen that problem statement in our automatic as a category, where customer buy it and they return it, suggesting that, hey, you have given me a faulty watch, it's not working for me. Then we reach out to the consumer again and tell him that, boss, it works perfectly fine, you have to just regrind it or and all that. But I would say its onus is on the brand actually to educate the customer with some kind of infographics or visual tours or something.
Correct.
So
And
that's how
content is the
we
king
take
there,
care of
actually. Content is totally the king, the way you can communicate the
king,
content
queen,
to,
whatever you want to call it. Yes.
and the way you can communicate the content, to the folks there. And I want to now at this point of time deep dive a little bit more, 2 clicks inside it, and the experience part of it. There are many different parts to it. The way you are able to target the customer, the way you are able to create a profile of the customer, and like what also Abhay talked about, a certain kind of a client, the certain price of a product. You cannot expect them to have a lot of delay. The packaging around the product, you cannot have it diluted at all. So I want to deep dive a little bit into different analytics that you all use to ensure that the customer experience is king. Little bit adding one more point there. Some time back, I used to say this, that the only way to eat an elephant is to break it into parts. And at scale, you have to apply this. You have to, various mechanisms of deflection or categorization or resolution or automation through various aspects of it, break it and solve the. And in the presentation today, Samdani ji, I saw your slide, the way you had, prepared a data lake and profile sets of consumers and what could be their behaviors was very interesting. So how do you break the problem for customer experience from a profiling perspective and resolve it? Samdani ji, first to you.
Yeah, so thanks for that question, Tapan. And I think we've had the luxury of having made a fair bit of investments in analytics as well. Right? We've got a massive set of people who just specialize in that, led by an SVP and so on and so forth, right? And I think at the core of it, Tapan and team, what we have been able to do is have had the luxury of stitching data between customer behavior on the app or on the platform, right, fundamentally. And then, so we call it, there is a customer experience angle, and then there is a voice of the customer, followed by the actions of the customer, right? What happens more often than not is for the CX team, we might get blindsided with the fact that experience is an end within itself. I think it's part of a journey, right? A better experience needs to convert into better outcomes for the organization. So we've been able to stitch a narrative between experience, voice, and the AOC, which is the actions of the customer, right? And basis that, been able to extract a variety of insights and so on and so forth. And the other investment we've also made here is in terms of, I alluded to the fact that we have something called a customer score. More specifically, it's actually called the customer journey score. Now, what we have also been able to do is profile our customer. This is hundreds and millions of data points, right? And then obviously, so many numbers of years. We've got 250 million customers on the platform. Active is about close to 70, 80 million customers, so to say, right? So what we've been able to do is in terms of through historical information, right, being able to exactly attribute a score for a customer called Tapan and basically says that Tapan has a score of X. And what that score basically tells us is in terms of if something goes wrong in the journey for Tapan, right? What is the probability that Tapan will churn out of the platform or will see a reduced purchase repeat rate? So we track something called the M1 repeat and the M3 repeat, which is the month one and the monthly repeat, right? So we've been able to establish and correlate this customer journey score with the M1 repeat and the M3 repeat and the propensity to kind of churn as well, right? And then what you've taken this a little further is take that score and fundamentally democratize that score across the ecosystem within the organization. Delivery team consumes that, return team consumes that, trust and safety team, everybody actually consumes that. And what happens is, and then there is an attempt to kind of green channel the experience for a customer called Tapan, who's got a score of, let's say, 80%. It basically means, hey, if something goes bad, Tapan score is 80, which means there's a high probability he'll actually churn out. Right. So luckily, we've been able to leverage a variety of analytical models to actually get to this particular state. And I believe that's going to be holding us in very good state. So that's one example I can definitely share.
It's very good. And this is over a scale of time, the repeat rate you can say. And of course, in the presentation, you talked about the profile of the customer, who's a deal seeker, who's a discount monger, etc., etc. You talked about the personas. The same aspect of personas and the analytics was talked about by Amit and Swajot also. Swajot, I just want to, since it's been some time you've spoken. So Swajot, why don't you give your perspective, what kind of analytics and targeting or personalization, the way you support it?
Yeah, so I think I was getting goosebumps when some Daniji were talking. I think we share a very similar outlook towards analytics. This takes me back to my college days. My professor used to say, "What gets measured gets improved," and I think every part of the business, if you're able to kind of measure the output and outcomes, that kind of helps you to kind of grow. At Salesforce, what we do is we have a simple platform, which allows all these different teams, be it marketing teams, service teams, delivery teams, work on a single set of the customer. They share the common view of the customer, and because they're able to get all of these insights coming in from, be it their commerce interactions, be it their call center interactions, be it their time that they're spending on the app, be it what email they click, what time they click on a particular message, things like that. You bring in all of that data, you create a propensity score of that customer, and then you start personalizing that journey from there on. And all of these, because your cross-functional teams can work on the single data set around the customer, so they are able to personalize at every juncture in that time of this. So like for an example, I can quote an example over here, right? So if you look at Adidas, what Adidas does is they do about a $4 billion worth of e-commerce business across 50 countries on Salesforce Commerce Cloud. That's so it's in itself, that's a large amount of revenue that Adidas does. And what they do is, if you are going and you're making a purchase from Adidas, not just your campaigns, even the personalization that you do on a shoe, that you want to kind of get a customization done, you want to get some custom sneakers made, you can get that done, and you can get your ship to your particular country that you want. And if you return back, depending on that, your next set of shoes or next set of socks and things like that, that recommendations start going out automatically, depending on that what time, what juncture of the journey you want to target this customer. So there are multiple use cases that customers are leveraging out of this data, and the idea is to have that single view of the customer across marketing, service, sales, and all the other functions.
Great, 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 Swajot. There's some wind noise from somewhere. Maybe other folks can. Yeah, thank you. Swajot, very good, important point, and this about the timing of email, the way they can, plan the customer outreach and recommend that. Uh, I want to take the same question to Amit. Amit, on your cloud, is it more the way you create a data lake of customers, the way you profile the customers? Is it that way you do that, or is it more from a front-end optimization perspective? What's your technique, Amit? How do you do that?
So of course, you're right. One is of course looking at, for us it's more front end, and we pick up a lot of data, like I said, on the behavioral aspects, right, on what are consumers doing on your app, on your web, and of course then turning some of those behavioral insights into actions, right? Of Like Sujat said, what kind of campaigns are you targeting at them? How personalized is your content? Looking at metrics like how likely is a user to churn out, like Samdani ji explained, right? While you have the entire experience score, but at the end of the day, how do you sort of start predicting, right? So we have some very interesting algos that start predicting that. So one is brand, of course, has their own ways of calculating it, but looking at the user behavior on the app, on the web, we start predicting that how users are going to churn out, and what's then the next best sort of action to be taken on some of those users. Uh, Apart from that, some very regular metrics that we think are still very very important, which today are being tackled, which is around reducing cart abandonment. How do I sort of build in interventions which are again very very personalized? How do I get a clear funnel view of where users are dropping off, and what are the interventions that I need to make to kind of get users back and reduce my cart abandonment rates? Also, what we're seeing is metrics like average order value, how I'm sort of using, like I said, better recommendations, better interventions to make sure that my average order value goes up. And again, this is across channel, right? Whether today is through emails, through notifications, through in-app experiences, using across channel, right? And like I said, for us, it's a lot about using, our AI engine that kind of helps us, with most of these recommendations. So yeah, some of these key metrics are around churn rates, around average order value, reducing cart abandonment, increasing average revenue per user, which is again, of course, leading up to the entire LTV piece that we kind of calculate for users.
Great, great, Amit. In the same spirit of analytics and handling the persona, I want to take the question to Sarvatha. Sarvatha, with the current situation and especially with the omni-channel model into play, single pickup locations have turned into multiple pickup locations, and there is first mile optimization, last mile optimization, return optimization, RTO, RTV. Uh, Too many scenarios which are happening, and which is further complicated by the size and price and expectations of the customers. So how do you run your analytics, and how do you optimize each part of it? How do you do that, Sarvatha? Over to you.
That's a in one line you've asked me like a very big question, honestly. But okay, I'll try to keep it crisp and short. See, the complexities are only increasing by every day, right? As we were mentioning in the beginning, the pandemic has pushed the digital adoption by at least 1.5 to 1.6x, right? And that's the way we are looking at the digital adoption now. And with omni-channel, with different pickup points, things are just becoming more and more crazy on ground. But I think the only way to make it happen in a sane way is by relying upon technology, right? I mean, see, operations is still run by people, pickups are still done by people, deliveries are still done by people, and we need to be very very clear that whatever people are doing, technology should be able to enable them, right? Make them do the right things on ground, right? Guide them with their next action, tell them where the exceptions are happening so that they can actually go and very very specifically target those areas out, because at scale it's impossible to monitor every transaction. So you basically, your operations is run through exception management, right? Wherever there is an exception, you come into action. Otherwise, things generally move in a smooth way, right? So a lot of product technology enabled, dashboards, control towers, people on ground who are actually running the operations. There's a lot of product and technology driven enablement that happens for them. There's a lot of backend algorithms that run. We don't leave it to the end person to actually start figuring out and optimize which one to pick and which one not to pick. It's all run through the platform. So yeah, it's a very very. I mean, I've been in supply chain for almost 17 years, and I had the privilege of starting my career with General Electric, where everything is process driven, right? So I can tell you, even from that era till now, I'm just delighted to see how technology has transformed supply chain, and it continues to transform supply chain.
Fantastic. And I'm sure you'll be using a lot of AI and simulations, etc. But that question will hold for some other day, and maybe we'll buy a drink together and discuss all that aspect of it. And Samdani ji will talk to us about what happens at larger and larger scale, but that is for another day. But as you've covered a lot of technology part, I don't want Pratik to scot free, and I want him to add on the process part of it, that how critical is the process part to run all these analytics and to ensure that this works fine. Pratik, over to you.
The process is where it all starts, and then technology is the one that comes in and it kind of enables the process to work the way it should work, right? And then the technology brings in and makes the process more efficient. I'll give you an example. If for example, if there is a return of a smartphone that's happening in the ecosystem, right? We know that the return of a smartphone means a loss of value. There's a value erosion in the device, right? The device comes from the customer's location after running the diagnostics there, reaches a local hub to a regional hub to a liquidator and finally into the consumer, right? The question is that the time that the device has taken, it has gone through various hops, been handled by various people. There's a value erosion. Value erosion could be due to shrinkage. Value erosion in the process could be due to breakage. Value erosion in the process could be due to MOP of the market, of the device coming down, of a smartphone coming down, for 5 to 20% erosion, right? The question is the process solid enough to capture the residual value of the device at each step? And what is, if the process is not strong enough, you are not measuring it. Like Mr. Handani said, if you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it, right? If you measure the value erosion of a device at every step in the process, then you can go after the problem statement to say, my shrinkage is happening in this area, and that has to be done in a processized manner, enabled by technology, as Saratha was saying. So you run a diagnostic at the customer location, at the regional hub, at the local hub, and at the liquidation center, and then you know exactly, and you relate it to the residual value of the device. And if it takes 3 weeks in the system, you know exactly where the residual value was lost and what it's lost because, and then you go after that. So it's a self feedback loop that gets created in any of the process, which also needs to be adapted to some of these complicated and complex processes. Right? And that's where the technology can enable capturing, improving the process.
Absolutely. In fact, I have seen it personally. If technology and the process makes a customer service person's life easier, their behavior, their tonality, everything with the customer changes. I've had a very small personal experience that I had to call for a small credit card challenge to one of the credit card service providers. And while they could, block the card and do everything that was required to be done on the card, the way the person was supported with technology was superb. That he told me, by the way, your telephone monthly, bill is will take money automatically from this card. That is day after tomorrow, and you've blocked this card today. So please go ahead and make that payment. Otherwise, you'll lose your telephone connectivity. So I was so curious, and I asked him that, how are you doing this? And then he could talk about, see, I have a recommendation engine and my AI, and this is popping up a suggestion that I must remind this to you. And the process part and the technology part makes CX very, 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 very easy, important, and easily doable. someone who's going to must be doing it from a customer experience standpoint, day in and day out. Of course, from a product perspective, Abhay, I want to bring in that how do you, from various aspects in your particular category, are managing customer experience? It could be analytics, it could be logistics. What are the things that you take care of?
See, I
Abhay?
think we have spoken a lot about personalization also. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we have spoken a lot on personalization already. I think it falls somewhere as a subset of this, if not the overall set of it. Uh, what in terms of personalization, what we do is there is a concept of engraving on our watch. So come this Valentine days of the world where a lot of couples start interacting with each other, and they reach our stores, and they come with their set of requests that they would like a engraved watch, for that matter, right? And so we help them with the engraving option, so it's free of cost and all that gives a lot of elation to the customers, right? That they at the end of the day they own this watch, and Fossil as a brand has created some memory. So personalization, if it translates to a memory, it does a lot of magic at the end of the day, and that helps in repeat customers, that helps in a lot of customer satisfaction, and a lot of good NPS scores and all that. What we have spoken about technology, as Sarvata was stating about, he spent 17 years in this in supply chain. So we face a lot of issues when it comes to uh, how do I put it? Measuring counterfeits, for that matter. These are expensive products, and creating a copy of it is the easiest thing to do at the end of the day. So the brand trust, at times gets for a toss when he has purchased it in the entire supply chain cycle. We have ensured that it has been dispatched the right way with utmost care and humility. But when it reaches to the consumer, and for whatever reasons he sees that it doesn't seem genuine, or it's not what he has purchased. We have heard a lot of stories around he purchased what he purchased and what was delivered. So this is somewhere, I think maybe next 5 years would go as a focus part of from my side as well. That how can I ensure that the brand is protected in the overall supply chain, and how we can personalize that particular aspect of it. How can I deliver a product to the customer with a name on top of it which says hello Abhay or hello Tapan in that case. So all these things will lead to a lot of personalization at the end of the day, and hopefully we can translate to good customer experience.
Yeah, very, very fantastic point. And the whole insignia part of it, the personalization part of it, and what you briefly touched about is personalization at scale
Yeah.
and at all value chain, that even it should not get damaged at any value chain, any link in the value chain. So very, very important point. What we've had a chance to cover in the past 30-40 minutes was a brief view of how through front end optimization, how through analytics, through data optimization, through customer experience across a scale of time, when the customer is returning, how frequently the customer is returning, what could be the recommendations of that, and how through various aspects of process optimization, logistics optimization, it's very important to maintain a great customer experience. I'm sure a lot is happening right now, a lot of newer models, and we've talked about it in the past: buy online, pick up in store, return in store, or a shop a store, book a product in the store, book an appointment, and buy it there. I'm sure a marketplace is gonna do that as well. You could book an Apple phone through Flipkart for a particular store and go ahead and take a demo and go and buy it from the store. All those things are gonna happen, and they must be in the wings for happening. It's been a fantastic experience for me to talk to all you folks across the spectrum. There was a technology spectrum, doer spectrum, brand spectrum, process spectrum, data spectrum, front end spectrum, and I'm enlightened to talk to all of you. So, any parting comments, any last statements, any crystal ball gazing, future trends, if anybody wants to talk about, most welcome. Great. Thank you very much to all of you for your time. Let's stay in touch. Let's look at scaling the e-commerce further. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Back to
panel
Sandeep.
members. Thank you, all of you for your time.
Thank you very
and
much.
for
Thank
the
you.
insight. It was lovely having all of you here and having the insights. Really, the delegate must have enjoyed the insights and knowledge that you people have shared with the participant. Once again, thank you all for your time and presentation. And stay home, stay safe. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you.
Thank you all.